Blue Protocol is set to launch here in just a few days now, and there's a ton of things that I've learned from closed beta, as well as Discord and Reddit comments that will significantly help your playthroughs, and hopefully help you avoid the same mistakes that I made. We'll deep dive into each of those and what to avoid, and providing both footage and context where I can as much as possible, as well as a whole bunch more. What's up, World Utopia here, back in with another video. Today we're checking out all things Blue Protocol. Now first off here, I'm going to go over the major ones and the little quick start guide here, where I have done my essential top 7 ones where you for sure should avoid, or at least massively consider avoiding. I do also want to preface that you don't have to avoid these things if you want to just play how you want to. Of course, you can do so. But for the min-maxers out there, or just people that don't want to make mistakes that are going to feel the weight later on, then these tips will definitely help you. The first one here is just leveling way too many classes early. You honestly should mostly just main one class for key breakpoints before swapping. If anything, maybe have one other secondary class, but a lot of materials you're eventually going to use on this main class, and if you split them to another class, unless you're constantly throwing money at it, you're going to feel the weight later, especially with the time gates. Now, they aren't as strong or heavy as Tower of Fantasy, but trying to farm up a second class while doing a main one, especially early on release, is going to be a very big struggle for you. At least if you're not just pulling money at it and buying things off the market, which I'm going to be honest, when I did play, the market was basically empty. I imagine it's probably going to be fairly empty even on release, or things will cost a near absurd amount, because everybody needs all those materials and needs to save up for themselves. Although, of course, there will be those few that do kind of dish out and give out. Still, early on, though, I would focus on one main class, push your story missions if you want to get through early. That way, if you want to participate in the endgame, you can get there very quickly. If you are curious on what class you should play and why, I do actually have a full guide and breakdown on my channel that covers things like lore, how the character plays, what they usually kind of go into for their role, and I even deep dive a little bit into their builds, their rotations, what their stat priorities are for launch, and even how they've compared over in the CN release as well as closed beta. Tip number 2 here pertains both to the skill tree as well as the skill abilities. So first off, you can level your skills and abilities where you do progress those throughout. Now they usually are time gated or at least level gated to around 20 to 30-ish. Depending on how that plays out for launch, it might be a bit different there. These ones though, you do want to be a little bit wary about, as there is going to be something on launch called a skill reset ticket. These are going to be item gated more than likely, and you're more than likely not going to get a ton of those right away. So do be wary about your skill points there. Again, this is separate than your skill tree. This is your skill abilities. Those have a level tied to them specifically. So to make sure you're leveling those appropriately, I would test all of your abilities yourself and see which ones you do like. Or if you're a min-maxer and you want to output good damage or good healing, good tanking, etc., then I would look up a build guide or build plan yourself. That way you aren't wasting key resources there that you would want to use to actually level up your other skills, or having to use that skill reset ticket. This is different from your skill tree though. That one you can reset as much as you like, at least you could during the beta, and that didn't cost you any resources, and it refunded all the resources you spent on the tree itself. Don't worry about the first 30, you're gonna have to get all of those anyways to get your specialization. Of course, if you do want to do some min-maxing there, you want to pick the ones that you think are gonna do best. However, you're gonna need to get all 30 of 30 there in order to get the specialization. Now, if you are planning to play a Frost Mage, I actually do have a build guide on my channel right now. I pulled a ton of info to put that one together from thousands, and yes, I mean thousands of Discord comments, as there's multiple resources on there, people that are posting about it, as well as looking at the CN logs and CN community as well, looking what they've established for Frost Mage, even utilizing some of the recent patch notes to actually formulate and build that guide. So if you want to check it out, it is on my channel, and if you want to be prepared, it does have everything there for you, including even what to prioritize on your skill tree in order, with a full docu sheet and everything. Next up here is enhancing throwaway gear. You can still do so for your epics and even your legendary sets. I would maybe mostly avoid it for the blue gear. There is a trick there. You can still technically enhance them with materials, where when you dismantle them, you actually do get the materials you spent back on them. So it is okay to do so, but I wouldn't worry about it too much until you get to the epic sets, as most of the early endgame dungeons are fairly easy, and you probably won't need it a whole ton, especially given how they do the time-gated stuff. You'll probably have plenty of time to farm out a lot of those resources, and even a lot of the epic set gear. Again though, you can dismantle the gear if you have enhanced it. Now I will say there is some mats you should for sure save until you're absolutely positive on what build you want to play, and that is your skill books. Now this is going to probably pertain to literally everybody. Even if you are a casual player, you should at least save those mats, as these are going to be very hard to come by, especially early on. And they can significantly affect your character stats, where it might not be noticeable for the first two, but every third book you do get a further enhancement to those stats. So these I would for sure hang on to. Or at the very least, know what skills you're going to go into, know which ones you do like or are going to play. Potentially if you're following a build guide, then do those in that specific order that is designated, especially if you do care about performance. Another one here, quite massive early on, is messing up your dailies or weekly caps. If you're trying to min-max hard, you need to run the limited entry content first, and don't necessarily overcap your currencies, or at least actually spend your currencies in the shop per day. There's going to be a ton of different buttons here to different shops. One of those, for example, is under your activity merits and season pass. Now this shop is a bit hidden, but it's in the bottom left where it says Reclaim Hub. That is actually an additional shop. It's not, again, paid currency, but it's actually the in-game currency. So the first one is under the season store. That's going to use your season pass points. Everybody's going to get these. Doesn't matter if you're on a free tier, you're still going to get season pass points. You'll see that most of these are a weekly limit. Some of them are a monthly limit. And these actually do change. They shuffle in and out for all the different shops and stores. But then there is also the Reclaim Hub. And that's currency you do earn mostly through Stinum Vaults. And you'll see here, these do have a limit total, but you can snag these out that will also help you. And you can even grab season points in here that will also help your seasonal shop. You also see in here they do have the advanced book selection, Reforged Stone. There's a ton of useful stuff here like the Luno pouch as well. A lot of useful currency. Again, make sure you're buying these out for the weekly, monthly, and even some daily one. I get there's a lot there, but you'll get through all the store menus eventually, and you'll figure out which currencies you do need to buy. Just make sure you're checking that and grabbing those before they expire, or at least before the reset. This also does kind of coincide with missing attendance and event claims. These do have multiple resets daily and weekly, and they do actually significantly help your guild progressing through levels. There's also daily check-ins that you have for both your guild and just a player. Again, these help your guild out itself and will help out your entire raid team, etc. So make sure you are doing the attendance and event shop there and the commissions as well. That way it'll help with your guild if you are in one. Again, there is one for a daily attendance even if you're not in a guild. Another one here is a massive time saver for exploration. There's a few here that I wanted to go over. The first one is you should make sure you're grabbing the teleport stations. These will have a globe icon over them, and they will save you so much time later on, especially doing the story quests and even side missions that kind of coincide with things. You can essentially auto-travel your character to a lot of different destinations, and it will actually automatically mount your character and start traveling toward that destination where you can't even alt-tab and look at other things if you needed to. However, if you don't have the teleport station, sometimes it won't get you there at all, or it doesn't let you do that automatically, or it'll teleport you to a way far off location, and that's going to add a significant amount of time. So make sure you're grabbing those when you do see them. There also specifically is a quest that you will get from Ariana. That one does pertain to your Terra Resonance, which will allow you to jump up very high, where you do see those sort of Elden Ring-esque launch pads or air launches. There's also a dash ability that you can get from her. So as soon as you do have the Terra Resonance quest available to you, you should get that immediately. That way you can also travel much faster. Now here's one last main one. I'm going to go over some other ones that are quite smaller, but one of the last main ones I actually got from Discord, where somebody mentioned that they did spend way too much money with their daily coins on different sets in the fashion store. They were essentially impulse spending. If you are going to use your daily coins, I would recommend mostly gearing that towards your gear. However, if you did want to use the daily coins for fashion, just make sure you plan that out accordingly. Seems like they were regretting using their daily coins to get that. So make sure you're screenshotting a style, looking it over, and that you actually do plan accordingly. As those daily coins, when they're gone, you have to wait until the next day when they reset, and they're not the easiest to come by, especially at the start when you have to wait out those full 24 hours. And moving on here, I do have some smaller tips and just overall kind of the cadence there. This first one is still kind of part of the main section, although it is a bit of a lower priority since it won't be early game tied, at least not right away. That's worrying about the Imagines and Will summons. Essentially, don't chase the low-impact fun summons first. You should target the BIS list for bosses, farm, and even before flex picks. Again, that's covered in my build guide for Frost Mage. There is actually 3 Imagines that you can go for. or that you should go for, and really only one of those is considered technically pay to win or where you have to pay for. There is also a box that you get early on that allows you to select 3 different imagines. In the beta, you earned 3 boxes of those, so you technically could get 1 copy of each. I would make sure be wary because you might not get that come launch. They might have been a bit more generous on the beta, given that you could reset your skill tree whenever you wanted, and we might get that skill ticket system. Yeah, just be wary which one you're picking there and make sure you're making the right decision. And then also do be very careful when chasing or trying to get summons for those imagines, as they will matter a lot later on. Another smaller one here is you should try to not overgrind too much before the story in AR gates. If you're rushing the story to unlock dungeons and vendors, you should do that first. You really don't have to do a single side quest the entire time. In fact, I didn't even level my skills up while I played. I had been a week behind in the closed beta, so I was just trying to catch up and be able to play with my guild and do the raids. So I was rushing there, but essentially you won't need to do any side story content. And if anything, I would prioritize the main story content and then at the end of the day, do the side quest stuff. That way with the time gates, you didn't feel like you missed out on anything. Although that pathing is perfectly up to you. Again, play all you want, but if you want to min-max and you want to get to the end, that's how you should do it. There's also one other tip there. It does say on screen that you can hold to skip, but if you just hit the escape key or mash the escape key, it's actually really fast. You get out of story quests very quickly. So if you didn't care about the storyline, you can actually just smash the escape button and it normally will let you out and complete the quest. Just a little bit of tip there for the min-maxers. Also another one here, this one's kind of logical, but also just look out for the hunt pings or anybody doing world bosses or chest routes. You'll probably see a lot. This one actually does coincide with your summons or your will imagines. The specific summon and will that you need can also drop from the boss or the world bosses, but it has to be the specific one that you need. Not a guaranteed drop there, but it will give you some currency, so you should try to do those as much as possible, which also does help with your weeklies and even daily resets. This one's fairly simple and kind of logical, but you should always carry food and pots on you, at least healing potions. Now you might be like, well yeah, of course, this game actually doesn't have passive healing, so you will need to heal your character either in a dungeon with a healer, or by using potions, at least when you're out in the open world. And if you are not a healer or teamed up with a healer, you will have to do that yourself. Just kind of a note there is no passive healing. That mostly should about cover it. Of course, you don't want to vendor your rare materials, or worry too much about your low-end gear. There are some other daily mentionables, but I more than likely might put together a day 1 route guide, or a day 1 prep guide to help with that. Overall, it should about cover today's video. And if you enjoyed it, like, subscribe, and until the next one. Deuces.